The storm raged like it had a personal grudge. Thunder cracking open the sky over the winding roads of West Virginia's backwoods. But nothing matched the fury in my chest as I gripped the steering wheel of my beat-up Ford. Headlights slicing through sheets of rain. I'd driven 3 hours from Charleston, chasing a lifeline that felt more like a noose, an ad buried in the dark corners of the internet. Promising room, board, and a fat stack of cash for companionship to a man who'd traded the world for solitude. My name's Ryder Kane, 25 years old with debts piling higher than these goddamn hills. And in that moment, as lightning lit up the cabin's silhouette like a ghost from a bad dream, I wondered if selling myself was the salvation or the sin that would finally drag me under. I killed the engine, the downpour drumming on the roof like impatient fingers, and stepped out into the deluge, my boots sinking into the muddied path. The cabin loomed ahead, all weathered pine and sagging porch, smoke curling lazily from the chimney as if it knew I was coming. My heart hammered not from fear, exactly, but from the electric pull of the unknown. The way desperation sharpens every sense until the world feels alive with peril and promise. I'd answered the ad on a whim, my fingers trembling over the keyboard in a dingy motel room. Spilling my story, orphan young, bounced through foster homes, scraping by as a barista in a city that chewed up dreamers like me and spat out husks. Elias Hawthorne's reply had been curt. Clinical, if you're serious. Come tomorrow. No questions. No refunds. And just like that, I'd packed my duffel, kissed my crumbling life goodbye, and aimed for the hills. The door creaked open before I could knock, spilling golden light onto the porch like an invitation from hell itself. There he stood, Elias Hawthorne, the reclusive writer whose novels had once topped charts with tales of fractured souls and forbidden loves. Now a shadow of that legend, his frame tall and lean, clad in a faded flannel shirt that hung loose over broad shoulders. His eyes, hazel flecked with gold, locked onto mine with an intensity that stripped me bare, reading the desperation I wore like a second skin. Ryder, he said, voice low and gravelly, laced with a faint southern drawl that wrapped around my name like smoke. You're late. No warmth. No welcome, just that gaze, pulling me in deeper than the rain ever could. I swallowed hard, water dripping from my hair onto the welcome mat that read, "Enter at your own risk," in chipped letters. Storm held me up. But I'm here. As advertised. My voice cracked just a fraction, betraying the bravado I'd rehearsed in the rearview mirror. He stepped aside, gesturing me in with a tilt of his head. And as I crossed the threshold, the scent hit me, old books, wood smoke, and something sharper, like whiskey laced with regret. The cabin's interior was a writer's fever dream, stacks of yellowed manuscripts teetering on every surface. A massive stone fireplace crackling with life. And in the corner, a typewriter perched on a scarred oak desk like a throne awaiting its king. Elias closed the door behind me, the click echoing like a lock on my fate. Sit, he commanded, nodding to a worn leather armchair by the fire. I dropped into it, my wet clothes clinging uncomfortably, but the heat seeped into my bones, thawing the chill I'd carried for miles. He poured 2 glasses of amber liquid from a decanter on the mantel bourbon, by the smell, and handed me one without ceremony. Drink. Then we talked terms. His eyes never left mine as he sank into the opposite chair, legs crossed, exuding a quiet authority that made the room feel smaller, more intimate. I took a sip, the burn steadying my nerves, and met his stare. Up close. He was striking mid-40s. Maybe, with lines etched around his mouth from years of solitude, silver threading his dark hair, giving him the air of a man who'd seen too much and shared none of it. Terms, I echoed, forcing a wry smile. Straight to the point. I like that. But inside, My pulse raced. The ad had been vague, companionship for a year, in exchange for 10 grand up front and another 10 at the end. No sex specified, but the undercurrent was there, humming like the storm outside. Elias leaned forward, elbows on knees, glass dangling from his fingers. I need someone to exist here. Read to me. Listen. Keep the nights from swallowing me whole. His voice dipped, vulnerability flickering in those hazel depths before he shuddered it away. In return, you get the money, and whatever else you need to not run screaming from these walls. I nodded, the bourbon warming my veins, making his words blur into something almost poetic. But there was a darkness in him, a fracture I could sense, mirroring my own jagged edges. That first night blurred into a haze of firelight and fractured confessions. We talked, or rather, he probed, drawing out my story like threads from a fraying tapestry. The foster homes that broke me young. The first boy I kissed in a high school bathroom stall. The way coming out had felt like stepping into a spotlight with no script. Elias listened, his face impassive, but his fingers tightened around the glass each time I mentioned the loneliness that had driven me to this. You're brave, he said finally, as the fire died to embers. Foolish, but brave. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Brave's just another word for desperate. He didn't laugh back, just studied me. And in that silence, something shifty to spark, dangerous and alive. By dawn, the storm had passed, leaving the mountains shrouded in mist like a lover's veil. Elias showed me to a small room upstairs, sparse but clean, with a window overlooking the valley. Sleep, he said, lingering in the doorway. Tomorrow, we begin. Begin what? I wondered, collapsing onto the bed, exhaustion claiming me. But his sleep pulled me under. His face haunted my dreams, those eyes. That voice whispering promises of breaking and mending in equal measure. Days bled into weeks, the rhythm of the cabin wrapping around me like vines. Morning started with coffee brewed strong and black. Elias at his typewriter. The clack, 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 a metronome to my reading aloud from his draft straw. Visceral stories of men loving men in worlds that punished them for it. His words were knives, slicing open truths I'd buried, the ache of unrequited glances, the terror of exposure, the fierce joy of stolen touches. Read it like you feel it, he'd say, his chair pulled close, knee brushing mine accidentally on purpose. I'd stumble over the intimate passages, heat rising in my cheeks, but his gaze held me steady, urging me deeper. Afternoons were for the woods hikes along trails choked with rhododendron, where he'd point out hidden waterfalls and tell tales of the mountain's ghosts, miners lost to cave-ins, lovers parted by feuds. Elias moved with a grace that belied his size, his hand occasionally steadying me on slick rocks, fingers lingering a beat too long. You grew up in the city, he'd observe, voice soft against the rush of water. Miss the chaos. I'd shake my head, admitting the truth. Chaos was all I knew. This is peace. Terrifying peace. He'd smile then, rare and crooked, revealing a dimple that softened his edges, making him human, reachable. Nights were the unraveling. Bourbon by the fire. His stories turning personal, the rise to fame with his debut novel. A queer romance that scandalized and sold millions. The crash when his lover, a rising actor, died in a car wreck. Tabloids twisting grief into scandal. I wrote him into every page after. Elias confessed one evening, voice raw as he stared into the flames. But the words dried up. Now it's just echoes. I reached out, impulsive, my hand covering his on the armrest. His skin was warm, calloused from keys and pages, and he didn't pull away. Instead, he turned his palm up, fingers lacing with mine, the contact sending a jolt through me like lightning reborn. "Ryder," he murmured, "what are you doing to me?" I didn't have an answer, but my body did, leaning in, breath mingling. The kiss tentative at first, then hungry, his lips firm and tasting of smoke and sorrow. It broke something in us both. That kiss a dam cracking under pressure. We tumbled to the rug, hands exploring with the urgency of the starved. His body solid and unyielding against mine, whispering my name like a prayer. In the afterglow, tangled in blankets by the dying fire, he traced patterns on my chest. Voice hushed. This wasn't the deal. I laughed softly, pressing a kiss to his temple. Deals were made to be broken. But breaks come in waves. Not all sweet. Elias's moods shifted like the mountain weather, sunny 1 hour, thunderous the next. He'd vanish into his study for days, emerging hollow-eyed, manuscripts crumpled in the trash. I'd find him pacing the porch at midnight, cigarette in hand, staring into the void. "Talk to me," I'd plead, wrapping arms around him from behind. He'd stiffen, then sag, admitting the ghosts, nightmares of his lover's crash, guilt that his words had painted a target on their back. I broke him first. He'd whisper, "With my ambition. Now I break everything I touch." I'd hold him tighter, vowing silently to be the exception. But doubt crept in like fog. Was I just another chapter, amused to fill the blank page? One crisp October morning, as leaves turned the forest to fire, Elias announced we were going into town, Asheville. An hour's drive, for supplies and a change of air. I hesitated. The outside world a specter, I'd fled. What if they recognize you? He shrugged, that crooked smile flashing. Let them. You're with me now. The drive was charged, his hand on my thigh as we wound through valleys painted in autumn gold. Radio crooning old Johnny Cash tunes about Ring of Fire. In town, we wandered the arts district, his arm loose around my shoulders, drawing stares, but no malice. Asheville was a haven for the hidden hearts like ours. Lunch at a queer-owned cafe, rainbow flags fluttering in the breeze, felt like a revelation. Elias ordered for us grilled cheese and tomato bisque. Simple comforts, and as we ate on the patio, he opened up about the ad. I didn't want a lover, he admitted. Spooning soup. Just someone to read the silence. But you fill it. My chest tightened. Love blooming fierce and fragile. Then let's rewrite the terms, I said, bold under the sun. He kissed me there, public and unapologetic. The world fading to cheers from passers-by. But the mountains called us back. And with them, the shadows. That night, a package arrived, fan mail. A dog-eared copy of his first book with a note. You killed him with your lies. Come home, or I'll tell the world. Elias paled, crumpling it. But I saw the fracture widen. Ex's family, he muttered. They never forgave. I pressed him for details, piecing together the tragedy. His lover, Theo, outed by a jealous rival. Career shattered, spiraling into the wreck that claimed him. Elias's fame had amplified it all, turning private pain public. The threats escalated, letters, calls from blocked numbers driving Elias deeper into isolation. He'd lock himself away, typewriter silent, while I paced the cabin, fear gnawing at me. One evening, as snow dusted the peaks early, I confronted him by the fire. We fight this together. You're not alone anymore. He laughed. Hollow. That's the problem, Ryder. I make everyone alone. His words stung, but I saw the plea beneath the terror of loving again. I pulled him close, kisses turning desperate, bodies colliding in a bid to outrun the dark. But pleasure twisted into pain when he gripped too hard, bruises blooming on my hips like accusations. I'm sorry, he gasped after, pulling away. I can't. I break you too. The weeks that followed were a tightrope tenderness laced with tempests. Elias tried therapy via grainy video calls, opening veins to a stranger on screen while I brewed tea in the kitchen. Eavesdropping on fragments. Guilt is my ink. Theo's ghost writes every line. Progress came in fits nights where he'd read to me instead. His voice steady on passages of hope. Fingers tracing my scars from old foster fights. You're stronger than you know, he'd say. And I'd believe it, losing myself in him. In us. Christmas approached. The cabin strung with lights I'd hauled from town. Tinsel glinting off snow-frosted windows. Elias surprised me with a Gifta leather-bound journal. Blank pages whispering possibilities. Write your story, he urged. I soughed. Not mine. I poured into it that night. Pen-scratching truths, the boy I'd been. Terrified of his desires. The man arriving here. Hollow. The lover emerging. Whole. Reading it aloud to him by candlelight. Tears tracked his cheeks. You've saved me, he whispered, pulling me down. Our lovemaking slow and sacred. Bodies mapping forgiveness. But the stalker struck on New Year's Eve, tires slashed. A note pinned to the door, he's mine. Leave or bleed. Panic surged. Elias wanted me gone. Packing my bag with shaking hands. Take the money. Run. I refused. Fire in my veins. We faced this. Together. We called the sheriff. A grizzled local who knew Elias's tale. Promising discretion. Prince led to a cousin of Theo's. Unhinged by grief. Holed up in a trailer miles away. The arrest was quiet. The threat dissolving like mist at dawn. In the aftermath, Elias emerged changed lighter. His typewriter alive again with words of redemption. Not ruin. We hiked to the waterfall in spring thaw. Rings glinting on our fingers, simple bands bought in Asheville. Vows exchanged under the pines. I sold myself to you. I teased. Water misting our faces. But you gave me back more. He pulled me close. Kiss fierce against the roar. We broke each other open. Now we rebuild. Years later. His novel Our Novel top charts anew. Dedicated to Ryder, the muse who mended. In the cabin's glow. Surrounded by manuscripts and memories. I knew the true cost of that desperate drive, not breaking, but becoming. Love. In its rawest form. Demands we shatter to shine. The summer sun filtered through the canopy, dappling the forest floor in patterns that danced like fireflies at noon. But Elias's hand in mine grounded me amid the whimsy. We'd been official for months now. The ring's a quiet anchor against the world's pull. Yet doubt lingered in quiet moments like now. As we crested a ridge overlooking the valley. His profile etched against the endless blue. Penny for your thoughts, I asked, bumping his shoulder. He squeezed my fingers. Voice thoughtful. Wondering if this is real. If I deserve it. I stopped, turning him to face me. Hands framing his jaw. Real as the bruises we gave each other. And deserve. We're past that. We're here. He kissed me then. Slow and deep. The kind that erased doubts. Birdsong our only witness. Back at the cabin. Life settled into a rhythm sweeter than any novel. Mornings with coffee and crosswords. His foot hooked over mine under the table. Afternoons editing his pages. My red pen slashing through cliches. His laughter booming when I quipped. Darling. That's tried as a Hallmark card. Evenings. We'd coop me chopping onions while he stirred sauces. Stories flowing like wine. His past no longer a specter, but a shared tapestry. One lazy July afternoon. As cicadas hummed their endless hymn. Elias sprang his next surprise. Pack a bag. We're going away. My brow arched. Away. From our away. He grinned. That dimple flashing mischief. To the coast. Maine. Maybe. Theo and I never made it there. The mention of his name didn't sting Anna Maria. It was a bridge, not a barrier. We drove north. Windows down. Wind whipping our hair. Stopping at diners for pie and tales of road trip ghosts. In Portland, we wandered the harbor. Salt air tangling with his cologne. Hands clasped as gulls wheeled overhead. The lighthouse in was our haven, white clabbered against crashing waves. Rooms with four-poster beds and ocean views. That first night, as fog rolled in like a lover's breath, we made love with windows open. The sea's roar underscoring our gasps. I love you, he murmured against my neck. Words I'd coaxed from him like shy blooms. More than words. I held him close, heart full, whispering back the same. Our body's a testament to survival. But vacations unearth buried things. On a cliff walk, Elias froze at a plaque commemorating lost sailors. His face draining of color. Theo proposed here. He confessed. Voice barely audible over the wind. Before the accident, I pulled him to a bench, letting the story spill, the ring he'd bought, hidden in a drawer after the crash. Guilt chaining it there. Tears came. Hot and unashamed. And I wiped them away, kissing salt from his lashes. Where it now? For us. Back at the inn. He did Theo's ring on a chain around his neck. Beside ours. Symbols layered like lives. The drive home was quieter. Reflective. But stronger. Elias dove into writing with renewed fire. Pages flying. Our story woven in, a young man selling his heart. Finding it reclaimed. I started my own book. Journal entries blooming into chapters. His encouragement my North Star. You're a natural, he'd say, reading over my shoulder. Pride swelling his chest. Fall brought harvest festivals in nearby towns, where we'd sneak away for hayrides and cider. His arm around me under starlit skies. One night, at a bonfire ringed by locals many queer, many scarred like USA fiddler played a haunting tune, and Elias pulled me to dance. Steps clumsy but earnest. Laughter bubbled up, free and fierce, drowning old fears. Winter whispered in with first snows, blanketing the mountains in hush. We decorated the cabin anew, strings of lights tracing rafters. A tree cut from our woods adorned with ornaments, a typewriter key, a faded photo of us hiking. Christmas Eve. By the fire. He read from his nearly finished manuscript. Voice steady. Eyes on me. And in the breaking, they found grace. Applause was just us. Clapping hands and kisses. But grace tests itself. In January, a call from his publisher. The book was greenlit. But revisions demanded cut the too personal bits. Toned down the queer fire. Elias raged, pacing the study. But I talked him down. Your voice is the power. Don't mute it. We revised together, fighting for every word. Emerging battle-worn but bonded. Spring thaw brought blooms and a proposal of sorts not on one knee, but in the garden we'd planted, knees deep in soil. Marry me, he asked, dirt-streaked and earnest. Ring box muddied. Tears blurred my yes. And we celebrated with wine under the stars, dreaming of a ceremony small and mountain-bound. Summer circled back. Hotter. Our love riper. Friends from Asheville visited queer kin. Artists and activists turning the cabin into a haven of laughter and late-night talks. Elias thrived. His reclusiveness a choice, not a cage. You freed me, he'd say, tracing my spine in bed. As leaves turned again, the book Lancetto acclaim, not infamy. Readings in cities. His hand in mine at signings. Fans whispering thanks for stories that mirrored their own. Back home, we'd collapse on the porch. Stars winking approval. Years wove on. Our story chapters in a life unbound. Elias's words flowed endless. mine joining the chorus. Ryder Kane. Once sold. Now sovereign broken, open to beauty. Loving without limits. The launch party in New York was a whirlwind of flashing lights and hollow handshakes. The kind that left you buzzing but empty. But Elias's grip on my hand through it all was my tether. We'd flown in for the weekend. His publisher footing the bill for a suite overlooking Central Park. But the city's pulse horns blaring. Crowds surging grated after our mountain quiet. One night, he murmured in the elevator, loosening his tie, then home to sanity. I nodded, pulling him close for a kiss that tasted of champagne and relief. The door clicking shut behind us. The reading at a packed indie bookstore was electric fans queued around the block. Copies of Echo's Unwritten clutched like talismans. Elias took the podium, voice steady as he read a passage about two men finding solace in isolation. His eyes finding mine in the crowd. Applause thundered. Questions flowed. Is it autobiographical? What's next? He deflected with grace, crediting my partner, who gave me the ending. Pride swelled in my chest, hot and fierce, as we signed books side by side, his knee bumping mine under the table. Dinner with the publisher was schmoozing at its finest lobster and lies. Promises of tours and adaptations, but Elias shone, charming them with wit honed on cabin nights. Later, in a quiet bar off Broadway, we slipped away for whiskey sours. Toasting to us, to breaking expectations, he said, clinking glasses. I leaned in, whispering, and mending hearts. The kiss that followed drew whistles from patrons. But we didn't care. Love like ours was a statement, bold and unbowed. Back in the suite, the city lights twinkled like distant fires. But we made our own bodies entwined on silk sheets. Slow explorations mapping familiar territories with fresh wonder. I never thought I'd have this again, he confessed in the dark, fingers tracing my ribs. After Theo, I thought love was a one-time draft. I kissed his forehead, voice soft. Edits make it better. We're the revised edition. Morning brought a surprise, tickets to a Broadway show. Angels in America. A revival that gutted us both with its raw portrayal of queer plagues and redemptions. Tears streamed during intermission. Hands clasped tight. Whispers of this is us surviving. Loving. Elias squeezed my palm. Thank you for pulling me back to life. The flight home was turbulent, mirroring the emotional swells. But landing in Charleston felt like resurfacing air crisp with pine. The drive to the cabin a decompression. Snow lingered in patches, but spring nudged at the edges. Crocuses poking through. Elias dove back into a new project. Ideas sparked by the trip. While I tended the garden. Soil under nails a therapy of its own. But reintegration brought ripples. Fan mail surged. Some adoring. Others prying. Letters begging for the real story. Speculation about the muse's identity. Elias shrugged most off. But only photo of us hiking. Time-stamped months ago chilled the air. How? I asked. Stomach nodding. Paparazzi. Locals. He burned it in the fireplace. Jaw set. Doesn't matter. We're safe. But sleep evaded me that night. Ghosts of threats stirring. To reclaim peace. We planned a getaway not far. Just a cabin swap with friends in the Smokies. The new place was cozier, with a hot tub overlooking ridges. And we soaked under stars. Steam rising like prayers. Conversations deepened there, my fears of being just the inspiration. His dread of losing me to brighter lights. You're my light, he assured, water lapping as he pulled me onto his lap. Lovemaking in the tub was playful, then passionate, laughter mingling with moans. Returning, we fortified webcams for security. A local ally in the sheriff. Elias channeled unease into writing. Pages darker. Exploring obsession's shadows. I joined a writers group in Asheville. virtual at first, then in person. Voices like mine sharing tales of hidden loves. Your partner's book saved me, one said, and I glowed, carrying the words home. Summer bloomed riotous. Festivals calling us out. At a pride event in Knoxville. Rainbows everywhere. We marched hand in hand. His first public outing since Theo. Chants of love wins. Echoed. And Elias, usually reserved, shouted back, eyes alight. That night, in a motel strung with lights, we celebrated with abandon. Bodies slick and urgent. Fall's harvest brought abundance pumpkin patches. Apple cider. Our love ripening parallel. Elias proposed expanding the cabin, adding a studio for us both. Hammers and sawdust filled days. Progress tangible as our bond. Winter's hush arrived with the Books Awards Buzza Lambda literary nod for queer fiction. Nerves jangled, but we prepped together. Tuxes tailored. Speeches rehearsed by the fire. The gala in D.C. was glamour and grit. Elias's win announced to cheers. His acceptance a love letter to me, to Ryder, who taught me breaking is the path to whole. Back home, snow blanketing our additions. We toasted with hot toddies. Next chapter? I asked. He smiled, pulling me close. Ours. Always. The award sat on the mantel like a sentinel. Gold gleam catching firelight. But it was Elias's quiet pride that warmed the cabin more. Spring unfurled tentative. Tentative after the winter's grip. And with it came decisions, big ones. The kind that reshaped maps. Let's make it legal, he said one morning over pancakes. Syrup dripping from his fork. Not for show. For us. My heart stuttered. Fork pausing midair. Marriage, the word, had danced in dreams. But reality's weight pressed, families absent. Past scarred. Yeah. I breathed, grinning through sudden tears. Let's. Planning was a joyful chaos. No grand cathedral. We wanted mountains as witnesses. Pines our choir. Invites went to our Circle Asheville friends. A few publishers. The sheriff who'd become an uncle figure. Venue, a clearing by our waterfall. Tents for rain. Wildflowers for vows. Elias handled details with surprising flair. Sketching seating charts. While I curated playlist Springsteen for the dance. K. D. Lang for the toasts. Bachelorette-style send-off in town. A bar crawl with queer comrades. Shots and stories flowing. Elias confessed nerves over a beer. What if I mess up the words? I laughed, kissing his cheek. Improvise. Like your books. His bachelor night was quieter poker with locals. But he texted me drunk dial sweet nothings, making me blush in my hotel bed. The day dawned misty. Sun burning through as we dressed in the cabin in slim navy suit. Him in charcoal. Ties ask you until friends fix them. Vows under the falls, mine. You bought my time, but gave me eternity. His. I broke us open. Now we seal the fractures. Rings exchanged. Simple platinum. Engraved with echoes bound. Kiss sealed it. Cheers erupting. Waters roar our applause. Reception was feast and frolic barbecue. Bluegrass band. Dances till dusk. Toasts roasted and revered. To the writer who found his plot twist. Fireflies lit the night as we slipped away. Guests lingering under stars. Honeymoon, a road trip west. Badlands to Big Sur. Chasing horizons. Deserts baked us golden. Coasts cooled us salty. Motels our love nests. Maps marked with memories. This is living, Elias said. Wind in his hair atop a California cliff. I nodded, arm around him. Ocean vast below. Homecoming brought normalcy laced with newness, husbands on lips. A joint account. Shared taxes mundane, but ours. Elias's next book brewed. Inspired by our union. While I shopped mine to agents. Queries winged like hopes. Summer storms tested the edition's roof. Leaks forcing midnight fixes. Laughter amid curses. Teamwork. I panted, handing him tools. He winked. Like everything. Fall leaves crunched underfoot as we adopted a Doga scruffy mutt from the shelter. Named Theo in honor. Tail wagging forgiveness. Walks became rituals. Leashes linking us three. Winter awards season again. But this time collaborative me debut shortlisted for an anthology. Readings tandem. Audiences enraptured by our synergy. Spring bloomed with news. Elias's book optioned for film. Hollywood calling. We debated LA visits. He hesitated. Not without you. Trips were trials glitz grading. But contracts signed. Our story silver screen bound. Summer festival circuit. Panels on queer lit. Fans gushing. You too are goals. Pride parades. Floats and flags. Our love a banner. Fall harvest. Bountiful. But a shadow. Elias's checkup revealed early arthritis in hands. Typewriter foe. Panic flickered. But therapy and voice-to-text adapted. His voice our new ink. Winter's quiet amplified gratitude to cuddles by fire. Dog at feet. Stories swapped. Years layered. Our narrative rich. Mentors to young writers. Cabin retreats hosted. Love enduring tempests. In twilight hikes. Hands aged but clasped. Elias whispers. Best plot ever. I smile. And it's ours. The film adaptation buzzed like a hive. Script drafts arriving via courier. Pages thick with our souls rendered in courier font. Elias pored over them in the study. Red pen merciless. While I paced the kitchen. Coffee cooling untouched. They softened the edges. He grumbled one evening. Tossing the bundle on the table. Made us palatable. I slid into his lap. Arms around neck. As long as the heart beats true. He sighed. Nuzzling my collarbone. It does. Because of you. Casting calls loomed. Auditions in LA demanding our presence. The city assaulted us bomb, trees mocking mountain pines. Traffic a snarl of impatience. Hotel balcony views of smog-choked sunsets couldn't touch our valley dawns. But we endured for art's sake. Meetings with directors, a queer visionary with fire in her eyes. Promising fidelity. Your story's a beacon, she said. And Elias relaxed. My hand under the table his anchor. Back east. Production hummed remotely. Table reads via Zoom where Elias's voice cracked reading his lines surreal. Intimate. I snuck on set visits later. Carolina mountains standing in for West Virginia. Watching extras mill as our cabin recreated in plywood. Feels like peeking at our diary. I whispered during a break. He chuckled. Pulling me behind a fake pine for a stolen kiss. Awards season doubled down me anthology one. Elias's sequel shortlisted. Galas blurred, tuxes. Toasts. Tears. A joint interview for Out magazine captured us raw. Love broke us. Elias said. But rebuilt stronger. Photos showed us windswept on the porch. Dog photobombed. Spring brought expansion adopting a second rescue. A feisty terrier named Ryder Jr. Chaos doubling joy. Garden thrived. Veggies bountiful. Canning sessions sauce-splattered and sweet. Summer heat wave tested AC. But porch swings and iced tea soothed. Elias's hands ached less with new grips. Riding steady. Fall's foliage tour, leaf peeping drives. Picnics by streams. Anniversaries marked with hikes to our spot. Winter solstice party, friends filling the cabin. Yule log crackling. Vows renewed impromptu. Film wrapped. Premiere loomed in fall red carpet nerves. But we walked it arm in arm. Flashes blinding. Screening gutted, our breaking. Minning on screen. Tears collective. Standing ovation. Elias's speech. To the man who sold himself and bought my heart. After party whirl. But we escaped early. Plane home at dawn. Critical acclaim reigned. Box office bloomed. Our story touching millions. Home. Snow falling soft. We curled by fire. Fame's fleeting. Elias murmured. This is forever. Years gifted depth, mentoring workshops. Cabin a sanctuary for fledgling scribes. My novel published. His series bloomed. In golden autumns. Graying together. Love's narrative unfolded eternal. Fame's afterglow faded into routine's embrace. The premieres roar a distant echo as leaves blanketed the drive once more. Elias's study overflowed with fan art and contracts. But he craved quiet. Deleting voicemails from agents mid-sentence. Enough spotlights. He'd say. Lacing fingers with mine on porch rockers. Let's chase fireflies instead. I agreed. The pull of normalcy stronger than any marquee. Spring's renewal mirrored ours, Theo the dog graying at muzzle. But romps undimmed. Garden plots expanded. Neighbors trading seeds and stories. A community queer book club formed. Meeting monthly at our place. Discussions sparking till midnight. Wine warming debates on identity's edges. Summer solstice ritual, bonfire by the falls. Friends chanting blessings. Our dance silhouette against flames, bodies known by heart. Steps synced in joy. Fall brought a curve. Elias's arthritis flared. Pages slowing. Frustration etching lines deeper. Physical therapy sessions in town. My hand in his during exercises. Encouragement my mantra. Words find a way. I reminded. Reading aloud when fingers failed. Our voice is a duet. He adapted dictation software. Collaborative plotting over walks. My input weaving threads. A new tale emerged. Aging lovers facing health's thief. Redemption in resilience. Winter's hush amplified intimacy, hot baths drawn. Massages traded. Whispers weaving futures. My second book deal signed. Launch small and sweet. Elias emceeing with pride.